Hi, my name is Brianna. This is going to be my take on the presentation for HHS 495. Are Americans divided by healthcare funding? And as we've discussed, we've also talked a lot about, insurance and that sort of thing. I will be going into depth and giving more of a description for you guys as well. Let's get started, okay? All right. And to answer this, we must do some research in the following aspects as well. And I'm about to provide that. Okay. In order to answer that question, we must understand what healthcare funding means, specifically in the United States. In the United States, the healthcare funding is money that is invested in healthcare, which and other pertinent government expenses. The money invested is in two specific categories, private and public, which has been discussed earlier in this presentation as well. Health insurance, private and public health insurances, as well as health research. I'd also like to add a couple more things on this slide as well. Public funding, primarily, it is derived from federal, state, and local governments as well. And private funding as well comes from employers and individuals. I just want to clarify that because I know there can be some confusion there as well. Also, so this funding that we have talked about primarily comes from areas such as hospitals, clinics, and other healthcare personnel and providers. Also, government funding is mainly contributes to other healthcare research and as well, which I find to be very important. So here are some pros that I found. Let me go into more detail. So some pros. More investment in the public healthcare allows for greater coverage across the population. A consequence of this is healthier population in the long term. And all in all, with greater funding, the evidence shows that greater healthcare funding protects against financial strain, which is extremely important for both large portion of the population, but particularly the vulnerable and those in need, which can be very beneficial in the long run because unfortunately poverty is a main cause for concern in the US today. So here are some cons that I found as well. Since healthcare funding is funded by taxes and greater funding can create a large taxpayer burden, and that's good. Also, there is a major possibility that with greater funding, we will have to see a greater strain on the healthcare system. And unfortunately, that would cause longer wait times and overburden healthcare workers. And especially on the longer wait times portion, I know many people do not want to have to wait that long in the healthcare system. And for example, take the ER, for example, people will be waiting hours to be seen for something that could be serious and life-threatening. And unfortunately, this happens more than you think. Okay. How does the United States healthcare funding system differ from other countries? I specifically chose Germany because I thought it would be interesting to really compare and contrast the two to give you guys a better idea of, how our system runs, really. Um, so in the United States, people are covered by public or private insurance, as I've talked a lot about today, the cost of which may or may not be subsidized by the government. However, there is no universal coverage or no guarantee that will receive coverage. And unfortunately, that happens a lot. In Germany, the Bismarck system ensures that universal coverage for the vast majority of the population, adopting instead a healthcare system where coverage is determined by the income of the individual. US doesn't do that, and after doing some research and things like that, I found that to be extremely interesting. Unfortunately, a lot of individuals in the US go without health insurance because of the fact they simply can't afford it. And I found it really interesting to put this in the presentation, so that way you guys have a difference and can compare the two whenever you're asked. Okay, so keeping the previous information in mind that I've discussed, where does this funding even come from? Let's talk about it. So, funding for healthcare in the United States comes from a mix of sources, of course. The federal government and the households provide the largest portion of funding. So let's talk about it. Primarily through the means of taxation and at 31% and 28%, respectively, of course. and other sources of funding, including private businesses providing 18% of the state and local government providing 16%. Additional private sources provide 6%, which, when considered in tandem with other sources, accounts for 100% of healthcare funding. So, here are some key programs that help in healthcare where individuals are unfortunately divided by cost, whether that be because cost is too high or anything like that. Let's talk about it. As a result of the government providing a significant amount of total healthcare funding towards programs such as Medicaid and Medicare, there's a significant burden, unfortunately, placed on taxpayers as a result of these programs. This burden is furthered by the fact that many taxpayers pay into Medicaid but earn too much to qualify for Medicaid, but too little to afford for a good portion of health insurance plans that are offered in the US. Therefore, many Americans need Medicaid and pay into it but do not receive it, thus creating a division and resentment, and they fall into a gap in the healthcare system. It's unfortunate, but unfortunately that is very much on the rise. And lastly, after this video ends, I will play it, and then as a group, I would like to have a discussion regarding the video. I would really like to get y'all's thoughts on the information. So this video talks a lot about healthcare access in America, and in reality, this really does relate to healthcare funding because of the fact that you can't get access to healthcare. How is it going to work? How are you going to receive like funding, everything like that? And just let's talk about it. I'll play the video after this video ends and we'll talk about it. Okay? And lastly, here's my works cited for everything that I've discussed today. And as well, at the end of the presentation, if you guys have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Thanks again.